Welcome to the Millionaire University Podcast. I'm your host, Brien Gearin, with you today. And on this edition of the MU Pod, I'm joined by my friend, Jacob Karnes. He's the founder of Waves Business Coaching. He's an expert in managing people and teams. He's an author. He literally wrote the book on managing people and teams. He's also a podcast host, and he's an avid college football fan. So he and I have a
That's
lot to
right.
talk about. Jacob, man, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, man, this is going to be a ton of fun. I was excited to have you on here because we've had a handful of conversations in the past, and I believe we met through like a mastermind group we're a part of, right?
We did. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, and you and I connected over the fact that you are a product of the Chick-fil-A world, which I'm a product of the Chick-fil-A world because I eat it all the time and I absolutely
That's right.
love it. But I also am in love with their customer experience model. It is, to me, flawless, especially for the fast food industry. I promise we're not going to talk about chicken this entire time, but I wanted to make sure I mentioned that because that has a big play in the business that you now run with Waves Business Coaching. So we're going to chat about that. We're also going to talk about managing people and teams. We want to get some expertise from you because we have a lot of listeners who are getting into the game, or they're already in the game and they have a team or they have people they need to manage. And at some point in time, just about every entrepreneur turns into a leader, right? And part of leading is managing those people and managing teams.
Right.
So there's a lot to learn there. But let's start from the very beginning. Let's get a little bit of your origin story. Give me a better introduction of yourself than I could do for you. And tell us how Waves Business Coaching got to be.
Yeah. So my first job was at Chick-fil-A. So right out of high school, I applied to 2 golf courses and they didn't call back soon enough. And I needed to pay for my car and insurance and gas, and reluctantly applied to Chick-fil-A. Ended up working there for 10 years. And so I worked in the restaurant for 7 years. I got a job at the corporate office for 3 years. And then 2 summers ago, started my own business in 2023, Waves Business Coaching. So unique thing with Chick-fil-A. I've always wanted to own my own business. Love Chick-fil-A, still love Chick-fil-A. In the right opportunity, maybe like owning the business, I'd go back and work for Chick-fil-A. But I've always wanted to own my own business. Didn't want to do that with Chick-fil-A. Didn't want a brick and mortar store. Just like didn't feel like a right fit. And so I'd pursued a corporate career, but had the itch to come back and own my own business, and love managing teams and people. And that's one thing that the corporate entity with Chick-fil-A actually can't do with their individual franchises. And I thought it would be a really cool opportunity to be able to do that for myself, and still have Chick-fil-A clients and lots of non-Chick-fil-A clients. And so did that in summer of 2023. And then last summer, my book came out in 2024, Master Your First Job. So the audience for the book is really the first-time employee. I looked kind of around the landscape. There's 1,000,001 leadership books, but didn't really see a lot of books for that first-day employee of just how do you be successful. And that's something I'm lucky to say I did very well. And I took kind of 10 years of working at my first job and put it into a how-to book of how to get from your first day to your first promotion, and wrote that for the employee. But I've had a lot of business owners reach out and say that they find a lot of value in it and how to do this for their employees, young and old. And so that's what the book's about. And I've been doing this for, a year and a half now. So really, really excited.
Awesome. That's wonderful. I would love hearing how you turn your experience from an awesome corporate entity. At least in my estimation, Chick-fil-A seems like a pretty awesome place to learn the ropes when it comes to business, and then turning that into your own venture. So you mentioned that you served kind of Chick-fil-A franchise owners, if you will.
Yeah.
That sounded like it was a bit of your original model, but tell us a little bit more about what business looks like today and who you serve and the people that get the most value from working with you.
Yes, to still work with Chick-fil-A, like franchisees, and other businesses like it. And so my main audience are people who have a team of, most of them are big teams, so 50 plus teams doing from $2 to $20 million in revenue. So Chick-fil-A would be definitely in the middle of that demographic, but also solopreneurs who are working with contractors or hiring a team for the first time. So I love those different aspects of working with people who have a team, and how to either grow your team for the first time and do it really well, or if you have an established team, how do you actually retain your top talent? That's a hot topic now, especially with rising labor costs and just the different way that especially Gen Z has approached the workplace. I think millennials started the change, and Gen Z is well established in the workplace now. If how do you retain those people who loyalty doesn't really matter anymore? I think like Gen X, like my parents' generation, you kind of just found a job and you worked there for 50 years. And now, especially younger employees are more than happy to leave within 18 months and hop
Mhm.
from job to job. So, how do you retain that top talent? How do you manage a team really well and bring the best out of your people and be a business that really cares?
I love that. We're gonna be talking about that here in a bit, but I'm really curious when striking out on your own, when you decided to make the leap from a corporate job, you're probably doing pretty well. And I'm sure, there were things, aspects about the job you enjoyed. What was that first step like when you're like, okay, like, did you pull the ripcord and you're just out? Did you grow this on the side? How did you first get into your entrepreneurship?
I probably did the not smart thing, which was I pulled the ripcord. um, I Yeah, I this was June of 2023. I had had a lot of conversations with some friends who were business owners and who had grown businesses for themselves and asked how they did it and what it looked like. And I had friends who were in the story brand community, and so I was familiar with that and thought about getting that certification of how can I apply this to my business, which I did through Business Made Simple on their coach certification. And yeah, so I did the ripcord, man. I just jumped out. I've been smart financially, and so we had some runway for it to take off and work. And there were a lot of conversations with my family of let's make sure this works, and what if it doesn't? What's the backup plan? But I think I needed the risk of it not working to make sure it worked, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I feel you on that one. I feel you on that one. And I feel like that's kind of the dilemma that so many entrepreneurs take. It's either grow it on the side, keep your income, slowly grow, or I think I hear some of the best success stories come from pulling the ripcord, where they're like, you know what? There's no plan B. Jumping out of this plane, burning the boats,
It's
plane's
gotta work.
crashing behind me. There's no going back, right?
It's
Like
gotta work.
it's
Yep.
it's got to work, and I think there's no deeper motivator than there's no other option. Like
Yep.
failure is not an option. Therefore, there is no other option, right?
That's
And I
right.
think for so
That's
many
right.
of us, there's no going back to corporate. Like I shouldn't paint with such a broad brush. Plenty of people are capable of going back to
Yep,
corporate and
yep.
maintaining a W-2 job. I think I'm not. I don't know about you, Jacob, but there was burning the boats. We're not going back.
Oh, that's why I said I love Chick-fil-A, and I'm never say never, right? But the
Hmm.
freedom that comes with being a business owner, I mean, I told my wife, I'm like, I would take half the salary with the amount of freedom I have, then double the salary and half the amount of freedom I have.
Yeah.
Just with life and stuff, yeah, I like working for myself. That's great.
Yeah. There's nothing like being able to call the shots. Just before our call, I was on a call with my bookkeeper. And we've had a handful of great months at my company. And she's like, "So what are you doing for bonus payroll this month?" And I'm like, "Oh, well, that's cool. I hadn't really thought of that." But like, I'm sitting here being like, I can go choose to pay myself a nice, healthy little bonus because my company has earned it and I'm the owner. I get to do
That's
whatever the
right.
hell I
Get some
want.
dividends.
Right. And that's why you do this, because you can call the shots. You have the ability to do that. And, your earning potential is up to you. Right.
Yeah,
It's as hard as you're going to work, as,
that's right.
innovative as you're going to be. And whether you're earning a lot or earning a little, which I think for most people, at least like me, I wasn't earning much for a handful of years, but that was up to me, right? Like
Yeah.
that was on me. So I don't mean to go on a tangent here, but I think that's a really cool story where you just pulled the ripcord and you were in. So what was it about business coaching? Like I don't know about you, but when I was trying to get into entrepreneurship, I knew I wanted to be one, but I didn't know in what. Like I had like a 2 year period of like, what the heck am I going to do? And what was that like for you? Was it, I know you kind of mentioned story brand and you had some friends who were business owners, but was it always going to be business coaching? Like, I've got this experience. There's people here who need my help. Did it kind of just present itself to you, or do you have to do some digging?
Yeah, I liked especially my corporate job, like a lot of it was knowledge and teaching and facilitation. So I worked in learning and development at Chick-fil-A. And so I got really good at facilitating and training, and I really enjoyed it. I liked working with, like as a part of my job, I worked with Chick-fil-A franchise operators and trained them. It was a huge part of my job, just on, I mean, everything in the business. And I really enjoyed kind of leading people to the well of how to run their own business well. And so
Nice.
in that job, I connected the dots of like, I enjoy this. I had a friend who was a StoryBrand guide, and I was using StoryBrand and Business Made Simple frameworks in my job all the time, just because I had read the books and enjoyed it, and had a an expert to pick their brain. And so those were kind of the dots that, as I was thinking about what would this look like to do for myself, how can I work with business owners, be able to train and facilitate, which I'm good at and I enjoy, and then what would I train and facilitate? What would I teach? And I'm like, well, there's plenty of stuff that I've learned from Chick-fil-A, but like, what would be a great place to start? What's a great framework to start with? I'm already utilizing StoryBrand and Business Made Simple. Might as well pay them for their permission to use it instead of
Yeah.
just reading the book and using it. So did that, and that's kind of how I put it all together to build my business. It looks a lot different now than when I started. I very much thought that, oh, I'm just going to tie my name to StoryBrand and Business Made Simple, and the leads will come flowing in. And I'm like,
Hmm.
these frameworks are amazing. And so why wouldn't someone want to go through this? Not like that at all in the
Yeah.
growth, but definitely making it my own and bringing to the table, what am I good at? What am I an expert in? And then utilizing the frameworks when necessary was a big shift.
Okay. So you decided to hop into business for yourself. You said it wasn't like, you don't just stick out your sign and people show up with cash
Yep.
in hand. How did you get your first client, and what was that process like?
You can only eat what you kill.
Yeah.
So I very much was like, okay, I'll do anything to make some money at first, right? So I did some projects that I didn't really want to do long term. Um, like for example, I worked with a business owner and coached like like some of their leaders, which I didn't want to do long term, and I did it for way less than I do stuff for now. Um, did a couple like one-off keynote sessions, but I was doing whatever I could to like, hey, what need do you have? Reaching out to people I know that would have a need and could afford it and could afford to pay me, and like, how can I fill that need for you? Through that, and trying to sell other stuff and having a lot of swing and misses with not selling stuff.
Mhm.
It's taken a while to kind of get my feet under me and realize what sells and what do I bring to the table that's unique. Because, I mean, as you know, there's just a million people in the space, and everyone's trying to do it. There's a lot of bad coaching and consulting out there. That's a lot of nothing, and I want to be different than that and actually offer results, and not like a business counselor is kind of how I describe it. Of
Mhm.
like, I just hear a lot of buzzwords, man. Like, and I'm not knocking people who do this, because there's people who do this and do it well, but I read words like get breakthrough and get, achieve more. And I'm like, okay, what does that mean exactly? Like, what am I getting as a result of us meeting 2 times a month?
What's your client bag like right now? Is it you said there's a few Chick-fil-A operators,
Yep.
and a few contractors, and what does an engagement look like with you and with whom?
So most of my work is one-on-one business coaching with business owners.
Okay.
Outside of that, I do team workshops as well, and so I love doing that. I love being on a stage and being with people. I've done some keynote speaking. I'm actually doing an event this week at a high school in the area, going through the book, and so really excited for that.
Yeah.
But work a lot. Most of what I do is one-on-one coaching with business owners, which I hope to shift in the next 12 months into group style coaching. Working on building that right now, but most of my work is one-on-one business coaching.
Okay. What does that engagement look like? Do they work with you for a set amount of time? Is it ongoing? Do they get to a point, like, do you guys achieve certain milestones where you're like, okay, you're free, little birdie, hop out of the nest, or what does that look like?
Yeah, so my initial selling point is always a framework or something we will work through with an end result. So a timeline, this will end. Because again, this is something that's important to me, is I don't want to give some blank promise of let's just work together indefinitely and I hope you enjoy it. I'd much
Mhm.
rather say, hey, let's get you back 10 hours a week over the next 5 weeks, and we'll walk through how to do that with creating your perfect week and what that looks like. And at the end of that is this idea of it's probably something on your team you need to free up or give to someone else to get back those 10 hours. But let's get that win so that at the end of those 5 weeks, you can have an actual result in your hand. And then I will do the upsell of, hey, do you want to continue this coaching relationship? We can work through A, B, and C. This is what it would look like. But I like you having a win in hand before I just offer this indefinite, bring me on as your coach.
And is it more of blanket coaching where kind of they're talking about the current problems they have in the business, and it happens to fall around a lot around managing people and teams, or are you more specifically focused on the problems relating to managing people and teams?
Mostly specific to managing teams. I do have a couple of clients where it's just ended up being we have a really good relationship and it's just ongoing. Everything is involved, but I'll tell you, even with those clients, it's probably 75% people problems.
Hmm.
The bigger the team, I'm like the more complex people are your most difficult, expensive, and complex part of every organization as you grow. And so it ends up still being mostly people, even though that's not what it was set out to be.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's true anywhere you go.
Anywhere you
Um,
go.
so let's kind of, since we're talking about people and teams, let's do a bit of a deep dive there. What is it about, as a company, like whether you're working with a Chick-fil-A franchisee,
Yeah.
or maybe if you're working with like a home service provider or something, and maybe they have, 3 full-time employees and a couple subs or contractors, something like that. Um, Tell me what the journey is like from them starting that growth to understanding, like, I guess, what's the biggest thing you're working on with them when it comes to managing new teammates, or just because I mean, I don't know about you, Jacob. It sounds like you had a much better corporate experience than I did, but I worked in places where the teams were poorly led. I feel like it starts with leadership. If you don't believe in the leader, you don't respect the leader, everybody's kind of crappy to each other.
Yeah.
But what does that look like with your clients, and kind of what's your philosophy in helping them mold that into something at least 10 times, hopefully 10 times better than what they're used to?
If you want, we can. This is a Chick-fil-A lesson, so I'll let you
Oh,
under the
let's
hood
do
on some
it.
Chick-fil-A stuff,
Oh,
and
let's
we can
go.
nerd out about anything Chick-fil-A you want. I love talking Chick-fil-A. So Chick-fil-A has something called the five critical success factors, and it's a picture. It's like a square. There's four sections, and then one in the middle. That one is leadership. And so, like you said, it all starts with the leader. Donald Miller said this that the best part of being in charge is everything's your fault, good and bad. And so that's why I like working with business owners, even when it comes to teams, is hey, if there's something wrong with your team, guess what? You're in charge. That's your fault. You get to fix it. And that's a great thing, that being in charge. And the second of those with Chick-fil-A is talent. The other three are customer experience, sales and brand growth, and financial stewardship. So those are Chick-fil-A's five critical success factors. But it all starts with leadership being the thing that bleeds into the other four. And the second most important of those is talent. And so the main thing I learned from Chick-fil-A is that if you take care of your people, they will take care of the business. And again, I love Chick-fil-A. There's no love lost. Heck, I'm still like a premier status on the Chick-fil-A app. So I'm still a raving fan and customer. But what they get right is they invest deeply in their people. And it's why people stay a long time. It's why people like me got in the door as a first job and stayed there 10 years, is because I felt deeply cared for by my bosses 100% of the time along the way. And so I help business owners do that of how can you better take care of your team so that they can take care of the business. And what happens is when you grow is you actually end up getting less time because you spend so much time managing people in the wrong way. And when you could have a much better system, care for them deeply, and then spend less time in your business and more time in your personal life and let them run the business for you. And it probably is done better than you would have done it yourself, if you just give them the time. So that's at a very high level, but that's kind of getting under the hood there a little bit.
Well, I love that because, for those who haven't been to Chick-fil-A, hopefully you'll go now. But if you're listening in an area where maybe you're not near one, hopefully there'll be one soon and you can
That's
go.
right.
However, it is the best customer experience you will ever get from a fast food joint, because they go out of their way to not only make sure you're not in the line for much more than 5 to 8 minutes, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know if they have a specific time. You would know, Jacob, but
Yeah.
they get you through there. They have plenty of people on staff to help at all times. They run you through. They have you make your order. You use the app, which I love using my app too.
Yeah. That's right.
Um, but the biggest thing is they're always happy. They're always smiling, and they always end the conversation with "my pleasure." And I think that's one of the small things, is how you address people and how you present yourself. And if every employee is bought in as a customer, I know that immediately. And now I expect it with Chick-fil-A, right? But if you've never been there, you might not expect that because you're used to McDonald's or Wendy's or whatever. But when you roll up, they're happy, they're smiling, they ask if they can take your order, they take your order, you're in and out in less than a minute, and they say, "Thank you, it's my," and you say, "Thank you, it's my pleasure." Like
Yep.
just those simple things, and I would build a temple to that for customer experience.
There is one. It's at 5200 Buffington Road. That's the corporate office address. But yeah. So I mean, you mentioned it. The core four at Chick-fil-A. So this is something they teach every new team member. The core four is create eye contact, share a smile, speak with an enthusiastic tone, and to always say my pleasure. It used to be stay connected to make it personal, but Chick-fil-A's gotten a lot busier since when I started, and
Mhm.
it's very hard to stay connected when you're trying to fly people through the drive-through. But and my pleasure was something they were already doing, and so they just changed it to my pleasure. But
Yeah.
and that's one of the things that I work with business owners with is even the fact that I know that still, and I was there a long time, but I expect every day one team member to know at least the core four. Like that is like core to what we do. But that is clarity from the leadership all the way down to every team member knows at the very least on your first day, I need you to be looking people in the eye, sharing a smile, speaking with an enthusiastic tone, and to always say my pleasure. Day one, like bare minimum, that's it. But that's so much clarity offered from the top, and that's part of managing people is how clear are you being as a leader? It's probably a lot less than you think if you start asking people down the line.
Right. Well, and it boosts everybody's enthusiasm, right?
Yep.
You said enthusiastic tone. Like, I don't know about you, but if I go somewhere in a lot of places these days, and the first line of defense at any business is the employee, right? The customer
That's right.
facing person. And if they've got a negative tone or I can't tell you how many times I walk into the store these days and you can't even get a hello, like from the
Nope.
person at the register nearby. I'm just like, come on, say hi to me, man. Like I'll say hi and then you barely get like something back in
Yeah.
return.
Yeah.
And like I crave customer experience. Now I'm kind of weird. I like my wife, I drive her nuts with this because we'll go somewhere like, that was a horrible experience. She's like, that was perfectly fine. What's wrong with you? I'm like, no, they never said hi to me. They didn't say my pleasure. Like they, like all these things.
I do the same
However,
thing.
yeah, no, it's crazy, man. But and I worked at the one job I did enjoy before going out on my own. I worked at a lawn care company, and it was actually a really great owner. I had a manager I didn't like, but the owner was fantastic, and he based everything off customer experience,
Okay.
maybe almost to a fault. But I learned a ton about that. And I also worked for the Cincinnati Reds, where they were all based on the Disney model of
Yep.
"Be My Guest," right?
Hmm.
And that really set me off on customer experience. And then with small business I feel like people expect it, but there are so many small businesses I encounter where that's just not a thing. Like they're just, you can tell they're just trying to get through their day, whether it's the owner or the employee or the contractor, whatever type of business it is. And that's why I want to throw some kudos your way for working to bring the Chick-fil-A model to small business because I think it's sorely needed, but there's so much to learn about it. So I don't mean to go on a tangent there, but such a big part of what you do.
It is, and it's so important that and like you said, not enough businesses are doing it. And if you do this well, and this is where it is all tied back to people, and that it's your job to get your team to do that. Because the more you grow, the more people you're going to have, and they're not just talking to the owner every time. You have someone else representing you in like your name and your company. So how do you, as the leader, offer the clarity that's needed to make sure they know what to do, or even even before that, how do you hire the right people? How do you make sure that you're getting the right people in the door to represent you? Because you can miss it right there, and you can offer all the clarity you want, but you have the wrong person at your team. So there's a lot of moving pieces there, but that's where I say the majority of problems as you grow are all going to come back to something related to people.
You mentioned hiring, and that seems to be the crux of everything you do. You have to have the right people in the right seats, but it all starts with finding the right people.
That's right.
Do you have any insight to share with us in terms of what to look for when hiring? Or maybe you're an entrepreneur, you've been a solopreneur for a few years, and it's time to get help. Maybe you need someone to help you with fulfillment or whatever it might be. What are a couple insights when it comes to I've never hired before, I'm scared, how do I do it?
I'm going to give you first three C's I like to hire for, and this comes from Chick-fil-A: character, chemistry, competency, in that order. So Chick-fil-A, if you like, if it's a funnel, right? Like the last rounds of interviews that Chick-fil-A does, and this is from the restaurants all the way up through the corporate level, of course, which is a lot more complex. But same stuff. If the first round of interviews, I want to make sure, like, hey, are you a good character fit? And so in a Chick-fil-A restaurant, it's going to look a lot different than a corporate job. But even with a 16-year-old walking in, I'm like, hey, are you looking at me in the eyes? Are you attempting to smile through the interview even if you're nervous? Are you attempting to, have an enthusiastic tone? That's a character thing, right? Like if you're not trying to do that in the interview, what am I going to expect that on day one on the front counter? Probably not,
Heck
right?
no.
So are you a good character fit? Chemistry, are you a good fit for our team? So what is the culture like of your team? Or if you're hiring for the first time, what do you want it to be like? What y'all come back to as far as how you can set that. So then you hire for chemistry. And lastly, it's competency. Can they do the job? And that to me is least important because again, if you have someone who is an expert in their field, really good at their job, but you have a team of other people, it's the bad apple in the barrel, right? They bring everyone else down if they're a bad chemistry and a bad character fit for your business. And so that's why I like going the opposite direction of character, chemistry, and competency and hiring for that in your business.
When I see a lot, and my business does a lot of work with trades businesses, and when it comes to hiring, I'm pretty close with my clients, and I understand a lot about their businesses that they share with me. And the biggest thing is people.
Hmm.
And one of the things where either they've gone wrong in the past or they've done so recently, where they try and lead with competency, and then the character and chemistry falls behind. And usually these are the people that don't last because you might be a great carpenter, you might be a great whatever, plumber, you name it. But if you're just a crappy person and maybe maybe you lack integrity or you're just a poor teammate, you're going to flame out real quick and you're going to cause a lot more headaches than solutions at the business. That's one of the things I've chatted with a couple of my clients on, you know, help them realize that competency can be taught as long as you have the right person with the right mindset, a good attitude, right? Competency can be taught.
I worked with a video production company who worked with a lot of contractors. So no full-time people on staff, but a lot of contractors. And you probably deal with this in the digital agency world. And I told him, I'm like, hey, this has to be with your contractors too, because again, when they're on set, they're representing you and your company. No matter who they might have their own company and they're 1099 employees, but they're representing you still. And so you need to be selective when you pick your contractors of who you're going to work with. Because if one contractor has a bad attitude and misrepresents you, you could lose that client. And so this applies to even contractors and part-time workers just as much as it does full-time people on your team.
Yeah, absolutely. That's you got to absolutely nail that down, and it doesn't mean you're gonna get it right the first time, right? Like
Yeah,
I think most businesses you cycle through a couple people before you find the right fit, but that also gives you the practice as a business owner to understand what works and what doesn't in your
that's
hiring
right.
practices.
And adjust. I'll add with
Absolutely.
the character and chemistry. One thing that's really easy that I love to do is define three qualities, three key characteristics that everyone in your company needs to have. And this is not boxing people in. This is not trying to get to like I want all, INTJ Myers-Briggs personality types, like none of that. But even for my business as I'm growing, I've already set this out of if you're going to work for me and be successful in my business, one, you've got to have a coach's mindset. And if I define that as you love to see other people win, like, and you want to see other people win. If you don't have that, we're not going to work very well together. You're not going to represent me very well. Two, ruthlessly efficient. Look, I need you to find the best way to get things done. We might disagree on what that is, but I need you to be hunting for that, or we're not going to work well together. You're not going to represent me well to other people. And three, high standard of excellence. As you can probably already tell, coming from Chick-fil-A, I have a very high standard for how things need to be done and how things should be done. And if someone doesn't have that coming in, again, they're not going to work with me well, chemistry wise. They're not going to represent me well, character wise, to clients and other people. And so I know right now, when I make my first full time hire, I'm going to have interview questions based on those three qualities. And that will be in the first interview because I will eliminate people very quickly as far as who's going to represent me well.
Yeah, that's awesome. So one of the first five tenants you mentioned from the Chick-fil-A matrix
Yep.
is, I think I got it right. Is it brain growth?
Brand growth was,
Brand
I think, number
growth.
five.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So how does brand growth work? What did that look like in the Chick-fil-A model, and how do you apply that to your business right now?
So that's marketing. Sales and brand growth that's a fancy way to say marketing.
Hmm.
With Chick-fil-A, it's unique because of course you've got like national campaigns versus what do the stores do on their level, unique brand. But in the order of things, I do like that it's leadership. I got to get myself right, right? Talent. Do I have the right people to get the job done? Customer experience. That's the next level, right? The customers actually have to have a good experience, and then you can market that customer experience. I like that it's in that order because I think the best marketing is just sharing your success stories of, heck, the Chick-fil-A commercials, right? The little red couch, all those are customer success stories, right? They sit
Mhm.
those are all real stories, by the way, and they bring in all real team members from around the country to film those, which is fun. There's a really cool thing at the corporate office that shows all the different people who have come in. Anyway, um,
Dang, how do I get on there?
hey, honestly, if you have like an amazing Chick-fil-A experience and share it with like the business owner, with that team member, you could get selected. I don't know how much longer they'll run that campaign, but it's possible.
Good to know.
But yeah, all those success stories go into the marketing engine, right? And I mean, we could talk for an hour on marketing, you and a marketing agency, and how
Mhm.
that's done well. But that's that fourth that fourth leg is getting marketing right.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, and I mean that obviously that applies to every business everywhere,
Yep,
and it's again it all starts with the team, but you got to have that plan in place. Because once you do have a team, you got a killer team. You can grow organically, but if you really want to grow, you're gonna have
that's
to
right.
market.
Probably need to hire
Yeah,
a sales and marketing person to get it right.
right, right, exactly. All right, so when it comes to you know, I don't know about you. I've met a lot of business owners, a lot of entrepreneurs. They don't strike me as leader of men and women, right? Where not
Okay.
everybody's got inborn leadership skills. And I'm not
Yeah.
saying that even like I have great leadership. It's a knife that's got to be sharpened.
Yep.
But is that something where it can be taught, it can be learned, or do you feel like it's something that you got to have a little bit of an itch for it in order for it to work out?
I think anyone can learn leadership. I will stand by that. I've not met anyone that I've worked with that I've been like, it's impossible. You're a lost cause. You can't lead people. And I was in a good organization. So um, I think all of it can be learned. And I say that because, so my hot take, I'm going to write a book on this one day, is the most important quality for a leader is clarity. And giving clarity doesn't take anything other than effort. um, and the reason I say that is if you work for a jerk boss, but you know exactly what to do, how to make more money, how to grow, your job responsibilities, you get good feedback all the time, and they're a jerk, but you have all that, I'd rather work for that person than for the person who I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no job description. I have no idea how to make more money. They're the nicest person in the world, but I have no idea how I'm going to grow in the organization, like what our main goals are, how I can be successful in my job. I'd rather work for the jerk who offers me clarity than for the super nice person who doesn't. And so that's the, maybe in 10 years I'll write that book. But so yeah, that's why I say at least that part can definitely be learned as a leader is can you offer clarity to your team? Caring for people just takes effort. Part of that is a good heart and good character, right? But like you can fake it. You can ask people how their day's going and fake it, even if you don't care. So I think a good leader can be learned.
Okay. And then you said this point about clarity. I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think it's very easy for a business owner to completely lose clarity.
Yes.
What is, in your experience with your coaching clients, have you run into somebody who just they completely lack clarity? And is it part of your job to help them discover that clarity? And maybe it was all there in front of them, but they needed someone to help put the puzzle together so that it was presentable and then they can show that clarity to their team.
Yeah, I'll give you an example. So I had someone who came to me and said, "Hey, my top level leaders are not taking ownership. Basically, they're not doing what I want them to do." And my first question is always, do they have the clarity they need? Absolutely. Where is that clarity? So he's like, it's in their job description. Okay. When did they last look at that job description? It's like when they were hired for the role. Have you brought it up at all since? It's like, no. I'm like, well, you're assuming that they're looking at that every day. Um, and that they're just doing the job description. I'm like, do you meet with them? Yes, weekly. What are you going over in those meetings? And it was all random. It's all just whatever happened that week. Never once referenced the job description. Never once referenced what does success look like. Not a lot of feedback. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to be honest with you. This sounds like it's your fault as the leader because you've not given them clarity. If the job description is what you want and that's what's most important, then your weekly meetings with them, if you're going to have weekly meetings, need to be going through those success metrics mentioned on the job description. Structure your meeting exactly like that and don't talk about anything else. It's not important. Like if that's what's most important to you. They started doing that. And what do you know? Turns out he had great people who took ownership. It just took a little bit of restructuring some meetings and using his time more efficiently and not talking about the random stuff that came up that week and start talking about what's most important to him. And now he spends a lot less time worrying about it and they spend a lot more time taking ownership of their roles and being really successful in their business.
Awesome. Well, Jacob, we're bumping up against time here. I know you're a busy, man. You gotta get going here in a bit. This has been wonderful. I think you've had a ton of great messages regarding managing people and teams that all us entrepreneurs need to hear at some point in time. We could go on for hours on this, but hey, man, I want to make sure that anybody listening out there who wants to get in contact with Jacob, they want to check out your book, check out your podcast. What's the best way to do that?
Yeah, I'll give you a great freebie here. If you want my book for free, ebook, e-copy of the book, you can go to masteryourfirstjob.com/free, and I'll send you an e-copy of the book. Again, targeted towards first-time employees, but there are some great nuggets in there of how to manage a team really well. Stuff like feedback and how to give it well, how to offer clarity for a path for growth for people in your business is in there as well. So there's a lot of great nuggets, and you can get that for free or give it to someone who needs it at masteryourfirstjob.com/free.
All right. Awesome. Well, Jacob, man, thank you so much for joining me. This has been a heck of a time.
Thanks, Brian. Appreciate it.
All right.